Hi and welcome back to India on 99.94, your home of Indian cricket content. Do subscribe to us on your podcast feed if you can, if that is the way you consume us. You can also catch us on YouTube, of course, and via the 99.94 app. I'm your host, Nikesh Ragani, BBC commentator, alongside Sarah Waris, my co-host of Wisdom, based out in Lucknow. Sarah, there's been so much. I mean, there's always so much breaking stuff around Indian cricket. But since we last spoke, the entire selection committee has been sacked. So they're currently playing on a tour in New Zealand without a selection committee, without a head coach out there, without any clear structure on the way forward for their T20 team, for their ODI team, who's going to be the permanent captain going forward. All those question marks around this Indian team. And of course, they're in New Zealand just a few days after finishing their work in the T20 World Cup down in Australia as well. Kind of makes sense in a geographical, setting that they're in that part of the world. They might as well go and fulfill their obligations in New Zealand. But so soon after to have that series, England have got the same problems, really. They're currently playing against Australia. That series has just literally finished as we're recording this. And nobody cares. Nobody's coming to watch. Nobody in England cares. Nobody's watching on TV. The Australian public don't care. There's too much cricket. India are in a state of chaos at the moment with no selection committee. So we're going to be discussing all that today regarding the selectors and what to do next, what will happen next, and just the fact that there's so much cricket and so much confusion as well at the same time. The FIFA World Cup has started as well, and I'm sure many listening and watching us on YouTube will be glued to that as well. Have you got a particular team, Sarah? Have you got any interest in the FIFA World Cup?
I have no interest in football. No interest at all.
All right. So
Who are you supporting?
there's my
England?
conversation burning and crashing. Yeah, obviously that. I mean, look, in India, there's loads of interest, isn't there, in the FIFA World Cup? Everyone usually sort of picks a team based on. So sometimes it's geographical. A lot of the people in Bengal have an affiliation
I'm
to
from
Argentina.
Bengal. Yeah, I'm from Bengal, so
Yeah.
I grew up in that FIFA World Cup was huge. There's
And it's
Brazil
Argentina,
there's
right?
Brazil or Argentina. So
Okay.
there's always this rivalry, and it's so much so that you almost feel like you are there because the verandas, the balconies, they have flags just hanging from the houses and all, and it seems like Bengal has turned into mini Argentina, mini Brazil for the entirety of the World Cup. So it's a huge thing in Bengal, and everyone is a fan of cricket or football, and both most of the time in Bengal. So
See,
my
football's
friends
massive there
yeah.
anyway, even domestic football, isn't it? Whereas domestic football across India isn't as popular. They've tried it with the ISL and all those types of things, but when it comes to international tournaments, I suppose in Goa it's really big. A lot of them support Portugal because of the roots. Kerala, it's quite big as well. There are certain pockets, but when it's the World Cup, the whole country gets into it. And the only reason I mention that is because I bet more people are interested in the FIFA World Cup right now in India than they probably are in India versus New Zealand, right? Which just goes to show. I mean, the cricket, is the national sport, is by far the most popular sport in India. It's sort of the sport for everybody. It's the sport that anyone and everyone can play, whether you're in a street gully or whether you're at an elite club in a posh private school in Mumbai. Everybody plays cricket. Everybody follows cricket. But right now, there is just too much cricket, and I bet more people are interested in the Football World Cup right now.
I didn't even know.
That has kicked off.
I didn't even know Surya Kumar scored 100 on Sunday till a friend pointed out that Surya Kumar is GOAT. I was like, what did he do? And then I went and saw the scorecard. And I didn't even know Deepak Hooda picked up 4 wickets. Still, I was watching the match today. I had to watch it today because I'm working. So, couldn't escape that. And I didn't even know that Hooda picked up 4 wickets in the last match. So, I'm just, it's
Yeah, it
monotonous.
got a duck though. He was up for a
Yeah.
duck in that match, but he got the 4 wickets as well. Look, I mean, let's get into it then. I mean, the squad that was selected initially by that selection committee, who then got the sack. It was done in advance, of course. It's a weird one because you've got people like
Yeah.
Bhuvi, who, as we mentioned last time, he's 32. He's going to be 34, nearly 35 by the time the next T20 World Cup comes around. It's probably the only international format he's going to or has been playing really, at this current time. Will he be playing it going forward? Well, the selectors certainly thought he might be, so they picked him, which is strange when you've got meaningless series like this. You want to just give as many people an opportunity as possible. Of course, you want a few of your senior guys there, and that's why Hardik Pandya's there and Surya Kumar Yadav's there, and that's why you've got players like this. Arshdeep Singh now, such an important member of the side. He's still there. They didn't want to rest him. They said, no, you carry on, and we want you to play as much of this format as possible. You say, all right, fair enough. Yuzi Chahel's there, that experience in some of those positions. But then you want to experiment a little bit. You want to try out new players. You've ultimately, semi-final or no semi-final, you've failed at the T20 World Cup. You've failed in T20 international cricket for the last couple of years at least. And, just give these new guys a chance. So some of those selections I don't understand. I mean,
Gill was there when, Gill, not T20I is not his best format, you could say.
Yeah.
So Gaikwad wasn't there in the ODI team when he is brilliant in ODI. So yeah, we had spoken about all these weird selections, and
So
no
having said all
Bishnoi
of
there,
that,
which was strange also. No Bishnoi.
yeah, Ravi Bishnoi as well, who's been in mostly in the setup over the last year or so, and then all of a sudden left out. Quite dramatic fashion, really, because he's the kind of player who you should be grooming for the future as one of your top spinners in this format and in white ball cricket. Having said all that, then, the selectors and what they've been doing since this particular committee was initially selected and now obviously sacked. Were they just getting it wrong all the time? Was this the final straw? Was the World Cup the final straw? Probably. I mean, this series, okay, they did it quite far in advance as well. But was the World Cup the final straw? Just all these weird selections that they've been making.
I am a little torn about this answer because on one hand there were such weird selections, and the whole captaincy mess about Virat Kohli and everything. They weren't the best, but on the other hand, I am tempted to say that it was just a knee-jerk reaction from the BCCI, because this is exactly the squad that Rohit Sharma and Rahul Dravid wanted. It's not a squad that they didn't want. Ashwin was a pick because Rohit Sharma wanted him there. You can argue that in the last World Cup, 2021 World Cup in UAE, Virat Kohli didn't get the team that he wanted because there were reports that emerged later that he wanted Chahal in the team. But Rohit Sharma, who wasn't the captain then, he was like, no, we should pick Ashwin. And Ashwin later in an interview said that because of backing of Rohit Sharma, he was picked in the team. So there is a debate that can be made that Virat Kohli didn't get the squad for 2021, but this is exactly the squad that Rohit Sharma and Rahul Dravid wanted. Avesh Khan, they wanted him to get a bigger run. They weren't very keen on having Sanju Samson around. So I am torn. They, not that the selection committee were without faults. There were a number of things which they didn't address, but I think they are not like, we are doing this whole episode on that, but I think it's like they're not the only ones to blame for all the weird selections. I don't know how you feel about that, but based on what I've seen and what I've read about it, I think Rohit, and this was Rohit and Rahul's team.
Yeah, ultimately, look, they seemed happy with the squad that was given to them, and they have that input as well. And we'll answer that question in this episode as well, in terms of do you even need a committee if you've got a captain and coach making all the decisions? So we'll come to that shortly. But I just want to throw something back to you as well, because look, it's been an age-old thing in Indian cricket where selectors and selection committees, and in the past, people who hold important positions within the BCCI who have influence over selections, or shouldn't have always been like that, but usually, there were people who weren't officially selectors who had a massive sway on who gets selected, and it's basically regional bias that used to take place a lot. And if you'd have like a chairman or of selectors or a president that's from Mumbai or from the West, then all these Mumbai cricketers will get selected. I remember going to India I've been so many times over the year. I think it was '05 or something like that, '06, something like that, and landed in Mumbai, was being driven to Pune to go and stay with my parents, my dad was working out there for 3 years on a secondment with HSBC at the time. And on that journey, I was just talking to the driver, who happened to be a big cricket fan. And all he was doing was moaning about the fact that Ajit Agarkar wasn't selected in the Indian team for, I can't remember which series. I think it might have been the Champions, it might have been '06 Champions Trophy, which was held in India. And he wasn't selected in that. And by that time, Ajit Agarkar wasn't past it, because he then came back and won the T20 World Cup. But he wasn't like, playing so amazingly well that you wouldn't be able to drop somebody like him. He had his failures. There were tours to Australia and all that stuff where he got all those ducks in a row. I know he wasn't a batter, but he wasn't taking wickets either. And yeah, he performed okay in the Ranji Trophy that year. But he was just basically just having a go at the selectors because there's no representative from Mumbai. That's why Ajit Agarkar's not playing. And, it was always like that. Anyone you talk to, they've always got their own sort of story about, this cricketer from my state wasn't selected because the selectors from Mumbai or from Chennai or wherever. And do you think that is still a thing, that regional bias?
I don't really think so, but there are these, digs at the honey that, this player's in the team because of CSK quota or Tamil Nadu quota or whatever. So there were these digs, but I don't really think that's the case anymore, because there's just so much of talent. And if that really was the case, then Prithvi Shaw should have been the first name, there, because Rohit Sharma is from Mumbai and all of that. So I don't really think that's the reason now, at least, like, with this selection committee, like, from what it appears. I don't know what it's like really internally, because there's no heavy, like, weightage towards one zone or one district being given. So I don't think that's the case now. It's just a case of absurd selections, and selections which in the long run have not really worked out, and leaving the Indian team with a lot of answers, like, in case of injury, what is Jadeja's replacement? So all these things, they've not really worked these out. So there's no left-hander in the team, and where's Bishnoi, and about the batting depth and all that. So it's these with the selections also, they've not really been able to answer all these questions for the long term, is what I feel.
Yeah, a lot of short-term thinking. So what is next? Well, we'll try and answer that. We'll take a short break, and we'll try and answer that off the back.
You're listening to Cricket's Conversation on 99.94. Whatever your team, we have the show for you on podcast, YouTube, or on the 99.94 app. We have India, England, South Africa, West Indies, and now Sri Lanka covered. If you want to find us, the best way is to follow us on social media at 9994DM by downloading the 9994 app, or Google 99.94 on podcast. We speak cricket.
So looking forward then, we've all seen the advert for the selectors' jobs. I thought of having a cheeky look at the application and the criteria and seeing if I could just maybe put myself forward for it. But in all reality, just having a look to see what the criteria was. And so the candidates who should apply for this, they should have played a minimum of 7 test matches, or 30 first-class matches, or 10 ODI and 20 first-class matches. And they should have been retired for at least 5 years as well. So I mean, there's a bit of why do T20 internationals not count, but they have to have been retired from the game for 5 years. And I know T20 internationals have been around for about 15, 17 years, but I don't mind so much about that. But the point I will make is, does it matter if you've played international cricket or not? Because if you're like an, I don't know, an Amol Majumdar or someone like that, who didn't make the grade but has been on the circuit for so long, players like that who've played so much Ranji cricket, and I'm not putting him forward for the job, I'm just giving an example of somebody like him who've been successful, been a top player in the Ranji Trophy tournament for so many years, have now retired, but didn't get to play international cricket through, various things, a little bit of luck, a little bit of that regional bias could have come into it in his day, certainly. But they've got more knowledge of domestic cricket and the talent coming through, and maybe what's wrong with the system in bringing through talented players to the international level, all those types of things. They've probably got more knowledge of all that kind of stuff because they're on the ground, they see it. Whereas international players, they literally mostly just play for India. They don't really play for their state sides anymore, hardly. Once in a blue moon they might, and maybe in the domestic T20 and the Syed Mushtaq Ali Trophy and stuff like that. But in terms of like having an actual grasp, does it matter that if you've played international cricket or not? Should that be a criteria?
No, not really. More than that, I know you don't really consider the T20I experience like important, but I somehow find that bizarre because with the T20I experience, players who've played like 30, 40 years ago, they are picking teams, like we've seen, they are picking teams based on what the game was then, and somehow they've not really adapted with the changes. And probably maybe they could have changed the criteria from 5 years to retire 2 years ago or something like that, which, or maybe have a separate selection committee just for T20Is and make a whole specialist team, because we've spoken so much about the approach towards T20 changing, and that just won't change. You tell the players, you tell someone like Shreyas Iyer, go out and just play attacking cricket. That's not going to change. Like, it needs to change from the grassroots. So why not have a whole different selection committee for T20Is also and make a different team? Like we've seen recently, Australia, they were playing a test match against England, I think. Not sure which team, or Pakistan. And the T20I team was playing a full-fledged series in Sri Lanka. So, and they weren't like second string team or third string team like the Indians would like to call it. That was a full-fledged Australian team. So yeah, I know that it's not really a big criteria like having T20I experience, but then again, like moving forward, if you want to change how T20I is played in India, I think these are the small things that I think will go a long way in changing things.
Yeah, I completely get the point about people who've played that long ago. I mean, maybe the criteria should be that you've retired. I don't know why you should have retired at least 5 years ago. I don't understand that, because what if like Dinesh Karthik
Probably
wanted to
for
become a selector and he
teammates.
just retired now?
Yeah.
I
Probably to
get that.
avoid
I get that in
conflict
a
with
way.
teammates or something.
Yeah, that's a good argument. Yeah, you don't want that bias of just
Yeah.
picking people who you were teammates with. So okay, let's give them the benefit of the doubt there. 5 years minimum retired from the game. But then, should you have like another criteria that says that you have to have played within the 2000s, or something like that? Because then otherwise you're going to hark back to all these Sandeep Patils, and you don't want to go that far back. Do you know what I mean? Even though these guys are great cricketing brains, and maybe keep, like you say, a separate selection committee for test matches and even ODIs, or just have a separate test matches and a separate white ball, or ODIs could go one or the other way. But certainly for T20Is, you don't want the same selection committee as you do for Test cricket. And maybe you want more experienced heads doing the Test game, and it works both ways. Do they need a committee? That's another question. When I think of all these BCCI committees, all I think is, I hate Indian politics, and it's just so messy and so old school, and they're stuck in, like, they talk about the British Raj and all, but they're just basically the same old thing. They're in a room full of wooden oak desks. There's 150 men all making decisions. They've not moved anywhere. Do you know what I mean? Since those days.
I just have one interesting point to add, totally unrelated, but I don't know if you've heard of this story where in Maharashtra, there were these two people from the ruling political party. They were like, it's not raining in Maharashtra, so they literally got two frogs married because they were like, this is going to bring rain to us. And then because it's monsoon season then, and it started raining in Maharashtra, and then they were like, it's raining a lot, and those two frogs literally got divorced. And this is a true story. I'm not making this up. And yeah, that is Indian politics for you. So this is not even the British era. This is like, I don't know where we are living. So yeah.
Mad, isn't it? Absolutely mad. And that whole is basically, we don't want politics in sport, but basically the BCCI is a political party, isn't it? Yeah. And it's always, stood unopposed, basically, because it's the only one that runs cricket in the country. And it's like a dictatorship, basically, isn't it? I shouldn't say political party. It's a dictatorship. Yeah. It's run by different leaders at different times, but they're all dictators. The whole body is a dictatorship. And I'm not saying it should necessarily be a democracy, but certainly there should be more transparency in all these appointments that are made, which that's never going to happen. Certainly not as long as people like Jay Shah are around, and his father's the Home Minister, of course, and there's obviously a lot of that at play, and we can say it quite openly, and it's an open secret, basically. Everyone knows it. So there's all that, but it's always men. It's always just a room full of usually old men making decisions. And all right, Jay Shah is not old, but he's got an old school mentality, hasn't he? Yeah. It's like everybody walks into the stadium, everyone kisses his ring. Come on, guys.
Anurag Thakur is there too. Yeah.
Yeah, and all these guys, right? And he's a politician, and it just annoys me how it's run. And do they need this committee now of selectors? Because they're just going to pick a committee full of old men, aren't they? And or middle-aged men. It's not going to be recently retired cricketers, someone who packed it in 5 years ago, is it? It's going to be somebody who packed in a bit longer than that. And when we say old men, even Ganguly's generation, they're now considered like middle-aged men, aren't they? So maybe you want somebody more young and dynamic. I'll give you an example. England, and not everything about English cricket is perfect as well. The ECB has been corrupt, and they've not stamped out racism in the ways that they should, and there's very little sort of positive stuff to say about them. But one positive thing that I will say about the ECB is their whole setup just before the Chris Silverwood era, when he came in as coach, and then they abolished the selector, and he was basically head coach and selector and everything, and that didn't work. But before that, when Ed Smith was appointed as the national selector, he was the national selector. He had the final call on everything. And that's basically what a chief selector on a committee would be. The only difference is there wasn't a committee of like 16 people or even 5 people or whatever. There was him, and then he had James Taylor, former England batter, and Ed Smith was a former England batter himself as well, played Test cricket for England and played for Kent for many years. James Taylor, who had to retire prematurely from England because of his heart conditions, is still a young man, was basically his right-hand man, but he wasn't officially a selector. He was more a scout, an advisor. He was like the chief scout who'd be sort of overseeing all the development in county cricket for all the young players coming through. And then there was Mo Bobat, who's still there, who was, one of the main scouts and sort of, I don't know what his official title is, but basically he was in charge of bringing young talent into the England setup. So that just 3 guys, basically, only one of them had the title of selector, and they were making all these decisions. And that was quite a good era for English cricket, really, because they had not only success in white ball cricket, they obviously won the 2019 World Cup. They were performing well through white ball tournaments in that whole era. And they also started to play a lot better in Test cricket because they had a massive slump just before Ed Smith came in. And then that whole refresh just helped them get rid of all that old school mentality of we need a committee, we need to sit down in a room inside Lords and, all these wooden oak tables and all these middle-aged men in suits making decisions. Let's get rid of all that shit and let's just find these young players. We don't want too many cooks spoil the broth, right? You don't want too many cooks. You want a head chef, a couple of sous chefs, and then you're going to get the best meal at the end of the day, right? If you've got a room or a kitchen rather full of like 16 different chefs, they're all going to have different opinions on how to cook that meal, and it's going to go wrong somewhere. It's not going to be right. So that's probably the best way
One
to
more
put it.
thing.
Should India
Yeah.
do that?
I don't know if they should do that, but I can see the advantages of having such a system. One more thing which can work for them is just get in touch with all the IPL scouts. Like all these franchises, I think they have a better scouting system than the BCCI. They are the ones. Mumbai Indians have unearthed Hardik Pandya, Bumrah, and all these upcoming talents. They are basically a result of even Arshdeep. You can say, these IPL scouts. So, and the IPL is the one who've laid out the platform for them. So why not just get in touch and be more in contact with the IPL scouts and work closely with the teams, because these IPLs call, and even the people who aren't picked in the squads, they call so many of these for trials. So even if they're not picked for the Indian team, just alert the selectors that this player from this country or this zone is there, and not country, this district, and he can be a promising player in the future. So just the NCA or the selectors, they can just have an eye on them and monitor their progress. So yeah, I don't know if India will do that. I don't think they will. They are very rigid in their functionings. But yeah, I can see the advantages of a system like this for Indian cricket.
The one thing there that you mentioned earlier is that not all of India's current problems, and even in selecting a team, because selectors select squads, captains and coaches, usually should be a captain really that selects the 11, but with input from the coach. That's how it works. And not everything is to do with the selectors. And this series in New Zealand, which has finished, which India won 1-0 thanks to the tie in the third game, which has been rained off, and the rained off match in the first one as well. So they win the series. Who cares about that? But they didn't learn anything, I don't think. And we'll come to that after this short break.
If you love the language of cricket and want more, then head over to the 99.94 app and you can hear all of our podcasts and cricket commentary. We're adding new shows all the time and covering cricket series from all over the world. Be the first to hear all of our announcements by following us on social media at 9994DM. Welcome to Cricket's Conversation.
So India winning that series in New Zealand, I think learning absolutely nothing about. So, they might have learnt that it's wrong to maybe open with Ishan Kishan and Rishabh Pant. I mean, maybe give them a run. Maybe if you feel that that's the right way to go, give them a chance for the next few months in several different series. Do that. But I just think two left-handers who play very similarly, maybe you want a little point of difference there. Just have a right-hander at the top and somebody who isn't quite as gung-ho with their style, because you can afford one of them. And not that you want an anchor at the other end, but someone who just, isn't a bit... They're not really that game aware. I don't think at all times in T20s, Ishan Kishan and Rishabh Pant, they just go hell for leather. And they're almost like Virender Sehwag, left-handed versions in Sehwag's early days when he just didn't think about anything. He just used to try and hit the ball every time it came near him. So maybe they've learnt that, but look, you can't blame the selectors for not picking Umran Malik, who should have played all three, well, two
Yeah.
of the matches that he could have played in. First one rained off, of course. And you can't blame them for not playing Sanju Samson, who should have played again, should have been selected in every match that was played in the series. And that's just unforgivable. And it's not even Rohit Sharma. It's not even Rahul Dravid. Or is it? Or is it? Because
Maybe it
Lakshman's
is
there,
because
Hardik's there, but they're not the permanent guys in charge. So maybe they've got a directive.
Yeah, maybe it's Rahul Dravid calling the shots, because Rahul Dravid has loved Deepak Hooda. He has backed him tremendously, even right from his under 19 days. They played in Rajasthan Royals together also. So Hooda's selection time and again is kind of a reflection. Yeah, he did well with the ball, but then in crucial moments you don't give him the ball, like we saw in the T20 World Cup. So is he the person for the future? Is he not? I think it was Rahul Dravid's, call there. And yeah, overall, why not just have them play domestic cricket instead? The Vijay Hazare Trophy is going on. If you are taking Umran Malik, this is the years where, he's going to develop. New Zealand could have been helpful for him, friendly conditions. He could have been effective there. If not effective, he could have learn things, how to improve better. So instead, he could have just played the Vijay Hazare Trophy. Same with Sanju Samson. I don't see where this, I'm just fed up of talking about this topic again and again, because no matter what we talk about, Hardik Pandya comes in, whoever comes in, it's not going to change. So ultimately, uh, like Hardik Pandya, how will we be able to judge Hardik Pandya, the captain? Because is he making these decisions? Is the coach making these decisions? I don't know what really is going on with the Indian team right now. I have no answers. So, how are they even thinking that Shreyas Iyer is decent enough, but he has his struggles against the short pitch bowling. He was dismissed for a first ball duck today. So, for the future, how is someone like Shreyas Iyer better than Sanju Samson? So, yeah, just
Or Prithvi
bizarre.
Shaw. Come on, get Prithvi Shaw in this setup, man. As soon as this New
I'm
Zealand
not.
tour's over, get the new selectors in and just someone with a bit of common sense. Get Prithvi Shaw in. He's got 2 years before that T20 World Cup. Now is the time. Just get him in and say, whatever happens, you're going to be opening for me for at least the next year. And we're going to put all our confidence in you. And trust me, he will get runs. He will get runs. He'll get them quickly. Sometimes he'll fail and it will look ugly, but more often than not, he'll do well. So anyway, that's what I think. And if
Just one thing.
if that
Yeah.
criteria was different, just quickly, if that criteria was different, I applied, I got the job, that'd be the first thing I'd do. So there you go.
Yeah, one thing on Prithvi Shaw is we talk about how it's not a cricketing selection, and he's omitted for non-cricketing reasons, disciplinary reasons. But I don't really think that's the case. I was just reading about Abhimanyu Ishwaran's case last year. So he was picked in the Indian squad. There's a monkey right outside my window right now. Weird UP things. So wow.
Trying to get
Yeah.
in.
So he's jumping down wires.
It's not open, is it?
No, thankfully not. But yeah. So there was Abhimanyu Ishwaran. He was selected in the Indian squad to go to England last year in the Test squad. Didn't play a lot of matches. Didn't play any match actually. And reports later came in that the team management was not happy with Ishwaran's. He's from Bengal. They weren't happy with his game against fast bowling and short bowling, etc., etc. And then they got in Prithvi Shaw and Suryakumar Yadav as their standby players. This was 1 year ago, so due to all the reports that Prithvi Shaw is not being selected because of non-cricketing reasons, because of disciplinary issues, he was right there with the Indian team in the Test squad as a standby a year ago. So yeah, right I didn't really think of this point before, but it's definitely not non-cricketing reasons, and I don't know again why he's not being selected. Yeah, because he was there a year ago. So, yep.
Yep, and hopefully he'll be there again in the near future as well. Right, that's about all we've got time for on this one. Sorry if you've listened and your heart's not in it really with this New Zealand tour and everything that's going on with Indian cricket. But just to bring it back to what a lot of you will be interested in right now. Sarah, I know you've got no interest in the Football World Cup. You know some of the bigger teams though, don't you? Give us a prediction. Who's going to win? You can predict in
It's like
football, can't you? It doesn't matter. There's no pressure.
it's like me predicting Rugby World Cup. Like, no idea who the teams. I didn't even know Messi is not in Barcelona till you told me a few days ago. So that's my knowledge. But if I had a chance, then Italy, France. Like, I
Italy are
have
not there.
zero idea.
Italy didn't qualify. And they're the
I have
reigning
zero
European
knowledge.
champions. They're the reigning European champions and they didn't qualify.
That
So
just shows my knowledge of
all
football.
right, you said
so,
France,
yeah.
right? France. Okay,
Yeah.
so back-to-back
Are they
titles for
like
France. Yeah, well,
Oh.
they're the champions. So
Wow, I didn't know that either.
yeah.
So yeah.
all right, I'll go. Obviously, I'd love to see England do well, but I've got massive love for Brazil, so I'm going to go Brazil.
Bengal
you
will
go.
be happy. Bengalis
Let's-
will be happy with that.
Let's see. Well, half of Bengalis will be anyway. The other
Yeah.
half, all Maradona and Messi fans, Argentinians.
I've
right,
actually
anyway.
seen Messi play.
Wow, have you?
He had come to Calcutta Salt Lake Stadium for a match against
That's right.
Venezuela
Yes.
in
Yeah,
2011. So I
Yes.
got like VIP tickets and I saw him from very close quarters. And I have zero idea about football, but I've seen Messi play. So yeah.
Yep. One of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest of all time as well. Lucky you. Right, that's all we've got time for. Enough football chat. We'll be back to the cricket next time. Thanks for listening and see you soon.